Manager.
Good morning, sir. Three things this morning. We have a fairly full agenda. We're going to talk about wind farms first, and that's going to be kind of a tag team of staff that are going to be giving you some information. We're going to have a presentation on Fire Station 31 CIP amendment. And if we have time, we'll do the agenda review. And I know you have to get out of here to head to Topeka, so we'll kind of see how the time plays. And if we can't do agenda review in this setting, I will come to you individually and cover agenda review. So we'll start with the discussion of wind energy and wind farms. And I'll just kind of frame this up. And Chairman, I know you went to a meeting in Reno County, and if you want to help me frame this up. First of all, on a national scale, I've had a couple of meetings. We met with Don Sherman with Westar Evergy a week or so ago, and I had a couple of other meetings with technical staff people. The national popularity of wind farms is growing across the country, and it's a Midwest belt because we have all the wind. And so there's a move to build these wind farms with the large turbines like we've all seen along the highway. It is the cheapest energy available right now, which is why they're popular. And it is actually knocking on our doorstep in Sedgwick County, so the time to discuss this issue is now. There's actually some proposed projects in southern Reno County, which are it's literally right across the border of Sedgwick County. There are a number of land leases in Sedgwick County where solar or wind farm energy, renewable energy sources can be utilized. And there's potential here for not only the farms, but for the transmission lines that go along with these particular farms. So the chairman had gone to a meeting in Reno. As you can imagine, this topic is controversial, particularly in urbanized counties where there's a lot of people living because the turbines are large, and depending on who you talk to, they're unsightly and potentially some health or well-being kinds of quality of life issues that go along with them. So, Chairman, did you want to add anything to that to stand this up? And
well, the main thing is that we do have some zoning that they could fit in, but there's no real rules on setbacks, screening, all the different things that go with zoning. So we need to take a look at that. It does have an opportunity of providing some tax income by taxing these or different developments. But by the same token, we've got an awful lot of pushback. Sedgwick County is mainly an urban county, and when we're talking 50 decibels of noise coming off of one of these things 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're a quarter of a mile away, that is fairly significant. And because we are urban, there's not too many places where you're going to be more than a quarter of a mile away from a home. So it's something we need to take a look at now, because if they do come in, and we know for a fact that there are already some leases of property in Sedgwick County for wind energy and for solar energy. If they do come in, we need to be ready. I think that's one of the things that I brought back from Reno County when I went there, is that they don't have the zoning in place. They don't have the regulations that go along with the zoning in place right now. So we just need to be prepared so that we can do what's right for our county.
Okay. What we'll have is Dale Miller will kind of talk about the zoning code as it exists today and get you up to speed on potential issues there. And then Mark Clark will talk about appraisal considerations. We have two environmental and health related presentations. Susan and Adrian will talk briefly about those, and then Dale will close it up with what your options are as commissioners as we move forward from a land use perspective. So, Dale.
All right. Currently, the zoning code addresses wind energy facilities and solar energy facilities under a generic category called utility major. And so in the definition of utility major, it lists all these things. Now, it does not list wind energy or solar specifically, but it does talk about generating plants, electrical switching facilities, and primary substations. And so to me, the definition covers them, although if we open up the zoning code, we could go in and specifically include that. But if someone were to come in today for a commercial wind farm, we would categorize them as a utility major. all utility majors require conditional uses in all zoning districts except for the Air Force Base District, and the Air Force Base District only applies to McConnell, so no other area would be eligible for to have a major utility installed without a public hearing and going through the conditional use process. Wind energy facilities that are less than 45 feet tall, like an individual homeowner might put up, those are allowed by right under an exemption, but a commercial facility is not going to be that short. In fact, based on the research that I did this morning, a GE 1.5 megawatt model is 328 feet tall, including the blade, and then the Siemens 2.3 megawatt system is 527 feet tall. So they wouldn't be able to come in under the accessory use exemption anyway, because they wouldn't be accessory to a principal use, and they wouldn't be able to come in under the 45 feet because the blades on both of these, on the 1.5 megawatt, the blade is 116 feet long on top of a 212 foot tall tower, whereas on the 2.3 megawatt, the blade is 173 feet tall. So if we had an application or interest in a case today, we would run them through the conditional use process, which would require them to, assuming that they're outside any of the urban growth areas of the small cities, would require them to come to Planning Commission, and then assuming that there is either a protest or someone on the County Commission directed staff that they wanted to hear it, it would then come to the BOCC for final approval, assuming that Planning Commission approved it. Because as you know, with conditional uses, if there's no protest, then it can be the decision of the Planning Commission is final. But I'm presuming that these would be controversial enough that someone would file a protest, and even if they didn't, someone on the commission could direct staff to bring it forward the way the code is written. So with that, unless there's specific questions about the way we do it now, that's the Cliff Notes version of the way the code is set up.
Okay, so if we decide to open up the zoning code, then you would look at setbacks and everything else that's involved in this, right?
They would still, with the conditional use process, we can apply all reasonable development standards that one would think necessary. For example, even though we don't have a separate, well, let me back up. For example, like in the zoning code today, for certain uses like car lots and car washes, if you are not in the proper district and you are going to do it, you have to rezone, but you have to meet these separate development standards back in the end of the code, and the utility major does not have those. But as part of the conditional use process, you as the commission can apply any reasonable standards, such as they have to have a 1-to-1 setback. If you think somehow screening is appropriate for something that tall, you can require screening as long as it's reasonable. Let legal staff chime in at some point if what they would think would not be reasonable, but under the conditional use process, you could add whatever you think is appropriate, even though it's not specified in the code.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? All right, Dale, thank you.
Okay.
Mark?
Let's see. I think we can push this up. Bear with me a minute. We'll pull up the map. All right. The map that you see on the screen, and I've also given the commissioners and the manager's staff a copy of this map. We've worked closely with the Register of Deeds, and they have been pulling information on properties that now have contracted with NextAir, and there are leases on these properties for wind farms and solar farms. Currently, there are 15 leases that impact 37 parcels. The yellow parcels, there's 11 of those, and they are for wind farm leases. The blue hash mark farms towards the south in the map is 2 for solar farm, and for yellow blue diagonal, that is going to be where you have both wind and solar. And then there are 21 parcels in the orange rust color where NextAir has secured leases or right-of-ways, excuse me, for easements for a gen-tie line. Now everybody wants to know, what is gen-tie line? Take, for example, the center right there is your wind farm. It is a closed system. You absolutely have to get the power out. So what they're doing is in Kingman, and the gen-tie line that is flowing right there into Sedgwick County is 7.6 miles long, and it comes out of the Kingman Wind Energy 2 farm. But they're also feeding power from the Kingman Energy 1 farm and from the Ninniscoff project. So it is a big deal. For 7.6 miles, which ends at 279th Street West, that is the West Star Buffalo Flats switching station. And that is where the gen-tie line terminates, and West Star distributes the power out to the power grid, to the electrical grid. We also learned last week from the planning department that another company, I believe it's Invenergy, has contacted them and has stated that they have secured substantial leases in the vicinity of the city of Colwich for a solar array. I know that I visited with the Register of Deeds office, and they are looking for those leases. We're not sure they've truly been filed yet, but they say they have been secured. That's what the company is saying. So we'll keep our eye on that. We will update the spreadsheet and the map, and we will keep commissioners informed as well as the manager. It's important to realize that when land is dedicated to wind turbines or solar arrays, that land is going to be classified as commercial real property and has assessment ratio of 25%. Now, usually these are going to be on ag land, so the portion of the land that the turbine sits on is going to be delineated as commercial. As you know, many times farmers continue to farm this land, and they will still be classified as ag land on that portion that is not impacted by the turbine itself. It is the responsibility of the county appraiser to contact the owner of the wind farm and the landowner to get as much information as possible so that these can be valued appropriately. The controlling statute for the renewable energy resource and technology exemption, which pertains to solar, wind, biomass, hydropower, etc., is KSA 79-201-11. The statute was amended in 2015. Before 2015, these types of projects were totally exempt, and it was permanently exempt. Nothing would come back to the rule. Nothing as far as the turbine or any of that. It simply was exempt. It was a lifetime exemption. After 2015, we now have a 10-year exemption. And it states that the exemption applications filed on or after January 1st, 2017, pursuant to KSA 79-201-11, are eligible for an exemption for the 10 years immediately following the taxable year in which construction or installation of such property is completed for all property, in other words, the entire farm, actually and regularly used predominantly to produce electricity utilizing renewable energy resources and or technology. Have any questions? I'll be glad to answer, but we will continue to keep informed because we do have other companies that looks like they are trying to lease property as well. So it will be quite interesting to see how this comes about.
The wind farm that's in Reno County, that's going to also have to have a
gen-tie line.
A line running across, and I've heard that it was going to go across North Vandale and north of Colwich, but whenever you find out where that line is going, I'd be very interested in the route of that line also.
Yes, sir. we'll be glad to do that.
Any
Anything
questions from the commissioners? Okay, thank you. Morning, Susan.
First, let me say renewable energy is great. It has less emissions than burning, fossil fuels. Westar Energy already has 32% of its energy produced from renewable resources, and they keep adding more, so that's great. But I'd also like to say it's kind of like medicine that you see a commercial on TV for. It's really great for the first 10 seconds of the commercial, then the last 20 seconds showed all the bad side effects. So I'm here to talk about some of the side effects from renewable energy, and so is Adrian. On the environmental side, what you have is the wind turbines are very large. The turbine itself to the top of the nacelles, over 200 feet. Then you have the large blades, so the final heights are anywhere from 328 to 410 feet tall for these structures. That can impair the aircraft that that Dale was talking about earlier, but it also has an effect on the habitat. The building of solar panels or wind farms disturb the habitat. In an area with prairies like Kansas, it can disturb the nesting grounds of like the prairie chicken or the grouse, so there's effects there. It can disturb the habitat from then on by limiting the range of those animals. So that's one effect. The other is the collision with the structures. On the wind farms, the birds can fly into the tower itself or the blades. There are a lot of reports about raptors, eagles, red-tailed hawks, other raptors being killed by these. There was one wind farm in California where they found 6 eagles at the base. Songbirds are the main birds that are destroyed from these. They can hit the guy wires, the tip of the blades, anything like that. So there's that issue of hitting the towers. And they estimate that up to 600,000 birds are killed a year in the United States from hitting these structures. Bats are also in harm. Bats have problems with, they're attracted by moving objects, so they're attracted to the movement of the blades. Also, there's a low pressure zone that's created from the blades and the rotation. And the bats, actually, their lungs, the bags at the end expand and explode, and their capillaries are around those, so they die from internal hemorrhaging. Study of the bats at the base of the towers by dissection show that this is what's happened to over 50% of the bats. In this case, there's about 900,000 bats killed a year in the United States. And there are many people who say these estimates are low because of the scavengers who come in and eat the animals before a count can occur. So you have the habitat problem, the killing of the animals. And so what's happening is that companies that create the wind farms and also local governments have looked at regulations they can put in to help lower this. The birds and the bats are especially killed during migration. In Sedgwick County, we have the hoary bat and the red-tailed bat as the predominant bats. They're both tree dwellers and migratory, so you have that issue. Any water body where you have waterfowl flying through on the migration, you shouldn't have the wind farms too close to those. So there have been many studies about painting the blades, cutting the blades off at certain times of the year or at night when certain animals are flying. It depends on area by area as to what is the best remedy to take care of how can we have nature and the wind turbines survive at the same time. But that requires research to take place to do that. So we're just at the beginning phase of that to see what's best for our county. On the solar panels, the main thing is some birds think the glare from those is water surface, and they land on those. If they're a waterfowl, A lot of those need to run on the water surface to take off again, and they can't do that on the solar panels, so they die. And that's if you have a large array of photovoltaic panels. You have other sorts of solar panels where they have a center tower that basically you have mirrors around it, magnifying it, heating it up to create steam to turn the wind turbine, to create generate electricity. On those, the birds are actually fried and burnt to death between the mirror and that tower. So there are different issues we need to discuss. What do the developers want, and will it best fit our community? Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Susan? Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just curiously, someone already mentioned that there's a 50 decibel noise pollution factor. Do you know what distance from the windmills that would be? Others, the noise decays or attenuates over distance. What's the measurement from where that 50 decibels is measured from the wind?
I don't know that. Do you know that, Adrian? We could look that data up and get it back to you, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
And it sounds like we had two different heights. One, you mentioned something about 400 feet, but I think the presenter before you said 527 feet tall at the tip height. Is that
it varies on who's doing the manufacturing.
right?
And also I've read that they keep getting taller, not shorter.
It'd be interesting to see some of these animal impacts, how they relate to different sizes of windmills. I don't know if it's possible to do that or not. Might be good to know that.
Some studies have been done on that, indicating that depending on which animal you're trying to protect, the higher it is, the better it might be for the animal. As far as taking off from the ground, they'd be under it. You still have the wires that might be in the way and the tower building itself.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
So from an environmental standpoint, can we get like a pros and cons list as far as, solar and wind?
Sure.
To see?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
I can get that to everybody.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Morning, Adrian.
Good morning. So exposure to wind turbines definitely seems to increase the risk of annoyance and self-reported sleep disturbances, some reports of vertigo, tinnitus, but there's no conclusive evidence that there is a direct cause and effect relationship to those. It's speculated in some of the articles that people move to that part of the state because they want to get away from the hustle and the bustle and the noise of the city, and here's this ungodly looking wind turbine, and it creates annoyance, and so when they find themselves irritable or having a hard time sleeping, it must be that damn wind turbine, that sort of relationship. It's also been speculated that rotating wind turbine wings passing through the sunlight can induce epileptic attacks in sensitive subjects because the sunlight will be seen to flicker. So it's a shadow flicker syndrome on the horizon. The risk has been calculated as minimal in the case of large wind turbines, which are unlikely to rotate fast enough to create an abruption of sunlight of more than 3 times per second. So the only recommendation that I could find with that is that, and I the standard size, is that 3-blade turbines, one, not have reflective blades, and that they not rotate beyond 60 revolutions per minute. And anything 60 and below, it's minimal for any type of epileptic seizure to occur.
Very good. Any questions for Adrian? The 50 decibels is what I heard when I was over in Reno County, and they said that is about a quarter of a mile from the wind turbine itself. 50 decibels is about what I'm speaking at from right now, from what I understand. So the sleep problem that you indicated is because it'd be what they described over in Reno County was like having a refrigerator running in your bedroom all night long, because it puts out about the same amount of noise. So that is a little bit of a health concern.
Well, and some people like to sleep with white noise. So again, it just depends upon one's level of tolerance for that sort of thing. But yes, it is commonly an irritant to many, but there's no really cause and effect that they could find anywhere, and I could find anywhere in the research that it really was the culprit of health-related concerns such as sleep disturbances or vertigo.
Good. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Finish it up.
I don't know whether, let's see, I may need some help getting back to the slide thing here. Didn't know exactly what all I had. What we prepared after the first meeting that we had, staff meeting, planning staff went in and looked at trying to determine where all the existing landing strips and public and airports are. And so on the map here, what we hope we have outlined is all the public and private airstrips in the county, and they're shown in the pink. And then the blue is the existing urban area of influence for all of the cities in Sedgwick County. And then the lime green, light green, whatever color that is, radius is, we were advised that these wind turbines apparently can affect the wind behind them, create vortexes or vortices for potentially up to 3 to 5 miles behind them. And so if you were a pilot trying to land on a private airstrip that was in that vortices area, then that could present a problem. And so what we did was just basically did a 5-mile radius around every airstrip. So, and I'm not suggesting that this is what staff is suggesting, we're just saying that if you took those parameters and said that's what we want to protect, you essentially have ruled out all of the county except the very southwest corner, the very northwest corner, and a small portion of the northeast corner. Just as an example. But as indicated, you know, if we get an application and it goes through the conditional use process, a lot of the standards or a lot of the restrictions that have been mentioned previously about the rate of rotation, how far they would have to be set back from a house, for example, road construction, all that stuff can be addressed as a condition of the conditional use and would be legally defensible as part of recommendations for a conditional use. So what we provided you on your agenda page are some options that you could leave the regulations as they are, which is option 1, and just rely upon the conditional use process to determine where and what development standards are appropriate given the application area. Number 2 would be to be proactive, amend the Unified Zoning Code to incorporate development performance standards specific to facilities, like I mentioned earlier, that would be similar to wrecking and salvage yards or car lots. And then option 3A and 3B would be to, for example, if you wanted to use this map and limit through the use of an overlay zoning district that you can build these facilities, but only in the areas not impacted by the vortices or the growth areas as shown on this map, basically the white areas. Or B, option 3B would be to just ban the use in the county entirely. And we are aware of at least one county in Kansas that withstood a court challenge and has banned wind energy facilities from their county entirely. And so, or some combination of those activities or those approaches could be incorporated if you wanted to direct staff to do so. Basically what we're after here is what, if anything, other than the status quo, would the commission like staff to investigate? With that, I'm trying to answer questions.
Very good. Questions? Commissioner Meinzer.
Dale, the one county that banned it, is that an urban county?
Wabaunsee, right? Where's Gabe? Yeah, Wabaunsee County.
Is that?
I wouldn't say it's really urban, is it?
It's in the Flint Hills.
Yeah.
It's next to Shawnee, right?
Yeah.
Was that decision was based on the Flint Hills?
Yeah, Justin.
Justin Wagner, Assistant County Counselor. Commissioner Meitzner, on your question, yes, it's in the Flint Hills. What happened in that case, which went up to the Kansas Supreme Court a couple different times, is they had an application in front of them for wind development. There are a number of leases that had already been entered into. What their Board of County Commissioners ended up doing was they passed a moratorium on any future wind farm developments. Then they amended their comprehensive plan and their zoning code to ultimately say that they couldn't have them. There are a number of legal challenges brought forward, as Dale mentioned, and what they did in that case ended up withstanding those challenges, and they said that both the moratorium and then also the prohibition on that was permissible and constitutional.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Another question. So Dale, obviously wind farms specifically, I'm not real familiar with the solar as much because you see the wind farms everywhere.
Right.
Is there like Sumner County has them and others have them? Is there some already best practices that are going on with these?
Certainly if we were directed to come up with some regulations, we'd review those. And in fact, Dave, you're out on my staff, has been trying to contact counties that we have been told have solar arrays and see what they've done.
I mean, because we've heard a lot of impact on the environment or on the animal impact, everything like that. You'd think that there's already been some documentation with these people or those other counties about what's best. What didn't work, what did work.
The American Planning Association, I think it's an 800-page document, has produced what they consider to be best practices. We were kind of waiting to see what the direction was here before we proceeded on that.
I'm not interested in 800 pages of reading. Thank you. I think it would be helpful maybe to look around.
So Washington County, Maryland took 130 acres, the county themselves, and put solar panels on that. So I would like for someone to maybe research what that county did, because they're not only saving on electrical costs, but they're generating revenue.
Right.
So it would be kind of nice to see how they did it. I know it's not in our state, but getting with them to see how it's benefiting, what the issues they're seeing are.
Certainly do that.
I have one other question.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think I think there's a lot of misinformation on the internet, but I do think there may be a tiny topic on there I'd like to have someone address at some point, and that is, this is obviously private sector. They're erecting these things with our zoning, and they're leasing property, and they're going to erect these things, going to own them and operate them for numerous years, but they have a life, and what happens at the end of life if for some reason they end up being abandoned? Who has the responsibility to destruct that, take it back down? Is that something that's written in the contracts or codes, or I mean, how is it handled?
Well, the way we handle it with wireless facilities is once they are not in use for a year, the owner is required to take them down.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd like to make sure that there's at least some thought given to that in this case. If we go down this path, because I know this is just internet bunk, but they're saying there's 14,000 abandoned windmills in the country. I'm sure that's not true. But I have driven in California years ago doing some flight test work, and I did see some abandoned wind farms, and it was very much a big blight for the community. I think they've taken care of that since then, but I was wondering if the government took care of that, or I don't know how that worked out. But it is a concern on the front end.
Yeah.
Make sure there's a plan on the back end, I guess I would say.
Well, certainly as part of the conditional use process, or if we amend the code to do something more proactive, we would certainly include that as a condition.
All right, thank you.
I guess where we're at right now, when we look at the map with airstrips and so forth, this is the air capital of the world here, and we don't want to do anything that damages that. We did hear when I was in Reno County from some pilots that were concerned about the vortices coming off of the wind turbines themselves. So that is something we'd probably have to take a look at on setbacks from any type of landing strips and so forth that are in this area. I do believe that we probably need something, because that's where that I thought when I was listening to what was going on in Reno County, they didn't really have rules and regulations in place that they could go by and say, this is how we're going to cite them, and this is the different rules. So I do believe that we need to start taking a look at what our regulations need to say to protect an urban county, and by the same token be very good partners with people like Westar and so forth, because they are an important employer here in Sedgwick County that we don't want to antagonize either. So I think the bottom line is we need to send Dale and his folks back to work and get advanced plans generated and start taking a look at the issues involved in this and see if they can bring some recommendations back to us. Do the commissioners have any problem with that?
So Chairman, leaning toward option 2, then have Dale work up some potential standards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're at the point where we want to say no to someone coming into Sedgwick County, but we need to make sure that we've got rules in place if they do.
One thing that was interesting when we were visiting with Mr. Sherman last week, a lot of the power generated from these wind farms is being going through the grid, going to Florida, going to the East Coast. So it's even Don didn't know some of the projects we were talking about with him last week. He had no clue who was setting those up, where the power was going to go. So it's very interesting that our power company is not really involved in some of this local construction. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate the staff time that's been involved in this, but just from looking at the number of leases that we've got in Sedgwick County, it's got a strong possibility of coming, so we need to be prepared. If we don't have any regulations, we're going to be in the same boat that I saw the commissioners in Reno County.
One final comment. I would just say I drive to Abilene every few months, and the last time I drove to Abilene, it was extremely obvious that they went from. I guess they were building this out on the horizon. I was aware of that. I saw them on the horizon, but I didn't realize how many there were. But in about a 3-month span, they have just exploded with wind turbines. I mean, they are. I couldn't even count them. It seemed like more than 100. Had to be more than 100, and most of those went up extremely fast. Now, maybe they were doing some surface work and that type of thing. I couldn't see it, but from the road, I can tell you that it went from what it felt like pretty much nearly none, to so many I couldn't count them in a very, very short time. So I guess my point would be, once you pull the trigger on this, you're going to see it's a very significant landscape change very quickly. So we got to make sure we do it the right way, because you can't go back and undo anything once you start.
Very good.
All right.
Okay, let's move over to the discussion on Fire Station 31 replacement CIP amendment. I'll let Rusty start this off, and we'll have staff present on this.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. During the 2019 budget development process, the Commission authorized moving $1.75 million into fire contingency with the intent to upgrade the fire station in Andale, Fire Station 31, in 2019. So today we're here to share with you some information. Interim Chief Doug Williams will share some comparative information for your consideration, and Valerie Castor with Project Services will share some tentative information that's been developed on potential project cost and on the what would be assumed the primary spot for rebuilding this station, which would be the county yard where it currently sits. They've done some work on that site to determine viability of building a larger station there, so Valerie will share some information regarding that research. Ultimately, what will come before you, I think on the 30th, will be a CIP amendment request for you to authorize this money to be moved into CIP so that the project can be begun. So today is to inform you, give you information to consider as we move toward that goal.
Yeah.
So with that, I will open it up to Valerie.
Good morning. As Rusty said, I'm here to discuss Fire Station 31, the potential replacement. We moved $1.75 million was set aside in 2019 in the anticipation of this project. It has gone through Sedgwick County's CIP amendment process where it has received unanimous approval as well as the approval of the interim county manager. Interim Chief Doug Williams is here today. He's going to talk about the response area and the current existing condition of Fire Station 31 in Andale. And then after he's complete, I will discuss some of the basic items that comprise our more current stations, the pros and cons of utilizing the current site in Andale, the overall projected project costs, and a potential time frame breakdown. So.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chief.
Station 31, if you look at our whole county response map, you'll see the Station 31 is in the northwest part of the county in the brown on the map. The red dot shows the spot where it's located in the city of Andale. Its first response area is the brown area that's shown. It covers approximately 48 square miles. This is a smaller area, shows the west part of the county and shows the immediate coverage of Sherman Township and Station 31. From this station location, it will cover first due to the city of Andale, to Sherman County, and also to the petitioned areas of Union Township, which is the township to the east that's in the white right there. The second due response from this station is going to be the green of Station 33's area, the pink of Station 35's area, and the aqua of Station 39's area. So from this location, we'll respond first due into the brown, and then it will respond second due into the other station areas from this location. A brief history of Station 31. It was built in 1997 in the Andale Yards area. This was designed as a quick temporary 10-year solution for the response areas in this district in Union Township, or excuse me, Sherman Township. The building was opened in February of 1998, and it was constructed as a bare minimum to match the other buildings in the Andale Yards area, and also with one bay with living quarters. Some side views and rear view of the station. If you look at the left upper view, you have the front that opens up the Andale Yards area. When this truck responds from this location, it has to feed out through the Andale Yards area, through their gate, which is locked at nights and weekends, and then out into the 247th Street from that location. The rear of the station in the center backs up to 247th, and you see the fence. And to the right picture, you see the storage shed for them to store all their excess stuff, because the station is small and doesn't contain very much storage. Station 33 to the bottom left is our newer design stations. All of our stations have been built in the past 12 years, have been built generally of this design. Now we've added some like EMS quarters or some of the other things to them also, but this is the standard print that we've used for 12 years with the 2-bay design that's double truck deep. We can put 4 trucks in these stations and back them up to each other with plenty of space. To talk about Station 31, with it being tight and congested, if you'll notice in the it's a 1-bay station, and we have to in the spring and the summertime keep a brush truck out there to respond to the grass fires and the wildland fires in that district. And because it's a 1-bay station, we have to leave it parked in the top right hand. You'll see where it's located, parked out in front of the stations in the elements. And in the wintertime, we move it to Station 35, and then we park it in the center between other trucks to keep it in the winter because of the freeze problems that we have. And down in the bottom left, you'll notice in that picture the bay of Station 31 shot from the mezzanine in the rear, and the weight equipment stashed against the wall to the right, and also weight equipment stashed against the wall to the left for the workout room for the fire personnel. Station 31, we struggle with a tremendously tight. This truck fits in here very tight because of the station was built a little bit too small for this type of apparatus. If you look in the upper left-hand picture, you'll notice how the truck backs up past a utility closet. This is a room that holds the sink and mops and brooms and those type of things for cleaning. And you'll notice how tight the bumper gets to it. In the center, you'll see the driver's side of the truck from the mezzanine and how tight that can be when you come around and have to walk somewhat sideways to get around the truck. And then to the right upper, you'll note, even with this backed in to where it's at, that you can't walk around the front of the truck with the overhead bay door down. They have to raise the door just to walk around the truck. One of the things that really concerns us is if you look in the middle picture on the bottom, to back this truck in here without hitting anything, we have to keep our personnel behind it to watch what's going on. They don't stand behind it, they stand to the edge, but we still have personnel backing the driver in that they're put in a really, really difficult position, and it could be very dangerous real easy. On the other hand, we have Station 33, which is the other standard station that I showed you before, the exterior pictures. If you'll notice in the upper pictures, it shows you down the sides of all of the trucks in the station and how there's adequate room for the people to move around, store their bunker gear, and to back in without any issues. And then at the bottom, you'll notice in the front of the apparatus, in the middle between the apparatus backed in, and then to the right, you'll see the front bumper of the engine, and you'll see that we have plenty of space without backing in and worried about backing into the trucks or personnel. Some of the amenities that we put into the new station is a fitness room. At Station 31, there's no fitness room. The fitness equipment I showed you earlier is stacked along the wall into the apparatus bay. They have to pull the truck out to be able to work out, and actually to be able to even access the weights that are stored to the right wall. Another thing you get is when the summertime in the heat, they're unable to work out in the middle of the day or late in the afternoon or evening due to the bay being non-air conditioned. It's heated, of course, in the winter, but there's no climate control for the summer, so that limits their ability also to work out in the summer. Station 33 shows below, it has an internal designed weight room within it that's climate controlled. And you'll see also both pictures on the bottom are just pictures of that weight room within Station 33. The office space at Station 31 is a one-person workspace. You'll notice it has the work desk to the left with technological equipment. This is our IT router and radio equipment that's in the window, mounted on the walls and down on the desk. This is all IT and radio equipment. To the right, you have the workstation for the computer and with a very limited amount of storage for office supplies. Only one person can fit. If you put two folks in here at the same time, they back into each other and it just doesn't work. Below, you'll notice Station 33. They have 3 computer workstations along the bottom left picture. You'll notice the 3 chairs. Unfortunately, we barely got the top of one, but the other 2 chairs show 2 other workstations. And to the right, you'll notice that the doorways on the bottom right picture, you'll note that on the left, that room is the equipment room where all of the router and radio equipment is stored in that room, to where you don't have all the buzzing and humming and that type of noise in the workspace area. And the right-hand picture to the bottom, that right-hand door to the bottom leads to the unisex handicap accessible public bathroom that we have off of that office area. Station 31, the bunk room and sleeping quarters within Station 31 is just a one single room, small, with 3 beds in it. It has no privacy, no barricades or curtains or anything. It's just 3 simple beds and a desk. To the bottom, you'll see Station 33. And I'd like you to look at the middle picture first. You'll see as you enter it off of the apparatus area, you'll see that each one of these curtains hanging down the side is a bed space. and they are all divided by the lockers. A good view of that to looking into the curtain from the outside is in the bottom right picture. To the left, you can see there's 3 lockers, one for each shift personnel, and then the bed with where they can pull the curtains. And then once again, it'll be divided on the other side by the back of the lockers for the next cubicle. They also have their own separate light that they can control in the center. This allows them privacy, both sleeping and when they're changing, because this is a unisex bunk room, so it does allow some privacy by pulling the curtains and dressing. It also allows a person that if they want to stay up in the evening and read or study for class or whatever they're taking, they can leave that light on, and it's confined within their cubicle and it doesn't disturb the others. To the left picture is a small desk that we keep into that area. And also, once again, if somebody wants to get away from the rest of them that are in the office, they can come back in here in the evening and study or do homework or whatever they choose. Also in the left-hand picture on the bottom, you'll notice the hallway to the very, very left goes to the men's locker, excuse me, it's not locker, the men's restroom and shower room. And this door beside the desk to the right leads into the women's quarters, which is their shower and restroom facility. The living quarters are same situation. There's the tightness. This station allows for 3 chairs in their room where they can watch presentations or any living quarters or downtime. You'll notice down below in Station 33's pictures, especially the left picture, you'll see that there's a tremendous amount more area to spread out and have a coffee table or between the chairs. Also, at these bigger stations, it allows us with the bigger rooms to bring neighbor stations together and have them train together, and that way they can do it on whiteboard, or they can show a video on the wall, or they can watch presentations on their TVs. But these bigger stations allow us to bring neighbor stations together and have they can drag the kitchen chairs and different other office chairs and have a larger training space that we don't have in this Station 31 building. One of the real big concerns is the single restroom. Station 31 has the single restroom with one restroom and with a shower in it. As you can see by the sign in the center, it is a unisex bathroom, which creates problems when we have mixed gender crews out there. One of the other big issues is to get to the restroom, you have to walk through the locker room. So not only can you not have two different individuals using the facilities, but they can't even be in the locker room changing at the same time either, because you have to access the bathroom through the small locker room. Creates a real large problem when we have mixed crews out there. Station 33 below, you see the picture to the left of the men's restroom, shower room. Picture to the right shows the women's restroom and shower room. And then the picture in the center shows that doorway off of our office that leads to the unisex public handicap bathroom there off of our office. Kitchen, Station 31, it once again was built real quick, and they just designed it with went and found some cabinets commercially and mounted in it and put in residential grade appliances. It doesn't meet the code due to the fact that we don't have adequate hood venting and adequate GFI outlets in that kitchen area. The appliances are all now dated. If you look at the center picture, the small table with 4 chairs, at shift change we have 6 personnel there, and we only have a table that can handle 4 people. So one of our big things that we do in the mornings is our crews have to talk to each other and pass on information from responses or from equipment used the night before. And at this station we only have a table that handles 4 people, so it doesn't even handle the crew. If you look down at Station 33, all these fire stations have been built with the hood venting, with more commercial appliances, and the table is off by itself. It's a larger table that will handle 6 to 8 people, as well as this bar space that will handle 3 more. It's just much more spacious and allows all of our personnel to mingle into that area and to talk at shift change and pass information, as well as having modern, up-to-date commercial-grade appliances. One of the big issues today is our gear storage. We're finding out more and more in the fire service today the cancer-causing issues with our gear storage and gear washing. Station 31, if you'll look in the upper right-hand picture, there's an arrow pointed at some wooden gear lockers that we've built. These don't allow the gear to be able to air out. It contains them like in a tight spot. It doesn't allow them to vent, doesn't allow them to air out. But we had to put them in a confined space because you'll note by the light on those lockers that the UV rays coming in that door, it was damaging our gear just from sitting there getting UV rays on it for about half of the day every day in the summer. So we ended up having to enclose it, but that created an issue with the NFPA and the confinement of the gear in closed storage. Also, the arrow to the left points to the storm shelter. It's one of them, commercially purchased type storm shelter that they bury in the ground. You see in the middle picture the stairway access down to it. This is a small that's very limited in space as how many people it can hold, and it's not climate controlled. Station 33 has, as well as the other newer stations, they have this style of open gear storage. This room is vented to the outside with a constant running ventilation fan. That way it constantly pulls fresh air in from the outside, flows through the gear and through the open storage, and then it goes to the outside. And that way, if we have any gear that has any contamination on it, it's vented to the exterior of the building. It's also self-contained to where the diesel fumes from the trucks don't blow on it, which is another huge issue in the fire service. The secondary, this building sits underneath a concrete mezzanine, and it is a secondary shelter. So in case of tornado or storm, this is a certified shelter area. And lastly, we want to go around a couple of the features that we build into the new stations. With the gear washing being such a huge issue at this time, we're installing gear washers in all of our new stations and retrofitting in some of the older ones. But you'll see here to the right in this upper left picture, it's a commercial gear washer that's explicitly for washing fire gear. And now we make our firefighters wash their gear after every fire. And that way, when they put the gear back on the next shift, they're not breathing the off-gassing of the contamination. And in the middle picture, that all of these stations are built with a decontamination room. This room has a eye wash and an emergency shower. If any of our personnel get contaminated, whether it be a trauma, car wreck, medical call, or whether they get into a hazmat situation, we can put them into this decon room and with emergency shower and the eye wash. And also you'll see the stainless steel sink in there that provides ability to wash any type of gear that we get contaminated, whether it's medical equipment or whether it's our other gear. The new stations also have ability to refill our air packs, which is the SCBA refill in the bottom left. And then we also have some spare closet that we put in different. Each station has different things they work on. The upper right shows what we call the ramp project at Station 39, which is their rural address marking project, and the guys out there build signs for the rural addresses. And the bottom right picture shows the gear repair and sewing machine. Station 34, firefighters fix all of our gear when we tear it or rip it, or if we pull the reflective off, they repair all that. And I believe the last slide we have is the storage. Station 31 has no storage at all. You saw where everything was packed around that truck. Station 31, if you look at the upper left, you'll see the mezzanine area that's up above the closets and the gear storage. And the bottom left also shows that mezzanine as you stare down through it. The pictures to the center, all three of the center pictures, just show different closets and storage spaces underneath the mezzanine where we can store brooms, mops, and we have a tool room and a little work room. And then to the right, the mezzanine also provides us with a lot of training in that we use this metal stairway up and down to carry firefighters upstairs, downstairs, and these stations also have this grating. If you look at the bottom right, the ceiling, that's an open grate like you have in a car wash, and we can pull that up and lift it. And if you look at the bottom left-hand picture in the center, you can see where it comes through the floor of that mezzanine. And we use that to practice lowering firefighters down into to confined spaces, and we also use it to rescue firefighters by lifting them out through a scenario that would simulate like a fall through a floor, that type. So we can pull that grate and do a lot of lift and lowering training. And Valerie's going to go over the...
So this is the floor plan of the typical 4-bay station that we have done that he was referring to. Station 31 is 2,500 square feet currently. This floor plan is 10,000 square feet. We typically build these 4-bay stations on an approximately 2-acre site. And then the same basic needs that he basically just went through is listed out there on that. This is the Public Works yard in Andale. The area in blue is where the existing station is. We did an overlay to show what approximately 10,000 square feet would look like on that site. And as was mentioned before, we did a brief evaluation of the yard to see what kind of pros and cons we could have if we built upon it. We would have to add an additional ramp on this property, and we estimated that. Public Works helped us come to an estimation of approximately $400,000 to go over this large culvert that's existing on site. There's also 1,200 linear feet of sewer line that we would have to tie into, and that would be an additional $140,000. So right out of the gate, we're already $540,000 that we'd have to spend on this site to get it up and running. Other than that, the land we already own, so that's a pro in our favor. We would also have to move some of the fence lines around and change some of the gates, which could affect how the public work people use their yard. There's also the concern of the parking lot and how citizens might come into the yard and then just be a little bit more invited to go into the Public Works yard since you've now got this fancier, newer fire station. Here's a general breakdown of the costs that we estimated, with land and construction around $1,620,000, design around $87,000, and owners' items such as furniture and equipment being around $38,000. Oh, I went one too far. Our estimated timeline, we placed land purchase anywhere between February and May, and that's just based upon potential feedback from the community. We've discussed design being from about May to September, construction potentially November to July 2020, and the final move-in, and again, all conditional upon when these other beginning dates are, but August for 2020. And in conclusion, again, $1.75 million transfer of cash from the Fire District General Fund to be sourced from the fire contingency, and this is planned to go on to the February 6th BOCC agenda. Are there any questions?
Super. Well, I appreciate the presentation. This is something that we've needed out in Andale for some time. I know that David's been very nice in hosting us out there in the Andale yard. If you ever have a chance to go out and tour, you've seen a lot of pictures of it today, but the pictures look better than the facility, trust me. I certainly hope that we get support on February meeting to start construction of this. I guess the only question I've got is, we're probably not going to build it in the Andale yard, right?
Well, that's an option, and it's going to be a policy decision for you guys whether you want to spend money on this current site, as Valerie talked about, to build the access onto Andale Road and the sewer work, or to look for a separate site. I know Andale City is very interested in having the station deeper into the core of their city, to where there's been some negotiation, I think, with city council people there. So I think, I guess that's what I think we should be doing for the next month or two. After if you guys greenlight this on the 6th, I think there's more work to be done to talk with Andale City about what the proper location for this site would be, and include Mr. Spears in that discussion, since we're on his property right now. So
I agree. I think siting is going to be very important, and I've heard that Andale, the city, would like some kind of a meeting room that we might be able to add if they donate the land. Maybe we could work out some kind of a deal between them. But I guess at this time we need to find out if the commissioners have any concerns. Commissioner Howell.
So this site plan shows the blue building, the current building on there. What happens to that? Is it remain as a building, or is it taken down, or what's the plan for that if this ends up being what we do?
Well,
we've talked about that a little bit. We really don't have a plan, but we would possibly look at that for our office out there instead of the office that we have. The one we have is really old, but there's nothing decided about it. But yeah, we want to look at it and try to utilize it some way instead of just tearing it down.
If there's tornado weather in the area, does your yard personnel use that shelter, the current shelter that's underground?
You got me on that one. Does anybody know, is there more than one shelter out there, or just the one? Does anybody know?
As far as I know, it's only one.
That's the only one?
So they would still use that. It looks like it still has a purpose, unless you build the building and there's again above ground shelter. I assume that they would use the fire station at that point. But even if we go to the city of Andover, there would still be a need for this shelter at that point. Okay. I'm a little confused on the land and construction. Since we already own the land, is this 1.6 including the $540,000 of sewer and culvert and all that stuff?
No, it's just a basic breakdown of the 1.75 of how it would we estimated it to be broken apart.
So really, we need to do 540 on top of this.
That's correct.
Okay. But this also says land, so we do at this location. The land's already.
That's correct.
Oh, we already own that. Okay. And this also shows 4 bays.
That's correct. And I can let you speak to that. That's the typical they do. I think that's what they're wanting for that location. But we have used that same general plan and done a 5, a 6, and a 7 bay off of it. So.
I guess my point is, how many fire vehicles are there now? I mean, how many do you want to have there once we're all done?
Well, right now we're storing the one truck year round, and then in the spring we bring that brush truck there so that we can respond on vegetation and those type of fires.
So your plan is to have 2 trucks?
2 minimum, and we'll probably store a reserve truck there.
Okay.
Also, there was a period of time when the water tower was down that we needed to put a tender truck out there, and fortunately, David's crew had a open bay on one of their sheds that we backed that truck into, but ultimately we increased the staffing out there from 2 firefighters per shift to 3 firefighters per shift. We need at least bays for the engine and for the brush truck, and potentially there could be placement of a 3rd truck out there at some point, whether it be a ladder truck or a tender truck as well.
I think we, correct me if I'm wrong, but where do we store our extra vehicles now? Don't we store them up at the north?
Currently, the reserve vehicles are stored down Stillwell.
We store 2 trucks at Stillwell. That's all the space we have there. But we spread the rest of them around some of the other stations. Like we did have one stored at 39, but when EMS went to 39s, we had to move it out. So we're storing it now out at Station 38. And there's another one stored there's 2 at Stillwell, and then there's another one stored at 33s.
And then I know we just changed our design to kind of a pre-engineered design for our last EMS station, which I thought, I know it's not brick and mortar, but my personal opinion was it looked pretty nice. I liked the way that building looked, and I think we saved about $600,000 over some of our previous plans. And this is a 2-bay station, so in my opinion, it's a very successful effort to kind of change our design a little bit. we built these for, you said, the last 12 years or so. Would it be reasonable for us to kind of look at our plan and maybe see if there's a way to do a pre-engineered building rather than a brick and mortar building?
That is what we're going to look into.
Yeah.
We are looking into that, and there might be some minor ways that we can improve efficiency of the building as well. So,
do you plan on having that data by decision point when we bring this up on the bench? Are we going to have that data to know what we're approving?
I can get you.
Sure. Commissioners, on the budget piece there, the construction is for pre-engineered metal buildings, so we already have that estimate in it's 1.75. And so that's what we'll look at for this fire station, the pre-engineered metal building. The land and construction piece, let me speak to that. We have a budget line item in there for land as well as construction. If we decide to stay on the end of the yard, we would basically take out that number for land, but then that would be substituted with the culvert piece and the lagoons and the
sewer line.
And the sewer line. So the land piece would come out, and we would add the additional 4 of those pieces.
Well, we have those different scenarios laid out so we understand what option. And then finally, this may be for our finance people, but the last estimates we saw on fire district fiscal outlook, does it include this expenditure as being? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Very good. Well, thank you for the presentation. Oh, Commissioner Meitzer.
2 questions. One, I just wanted to confirm, and maybe Commissioner Howell. So this is the capital cost to build this, and we don't have. Do we show the impact on? Is there an operational impact on ongoing? Are we increasing personnel and operating? And what would that be? We don't have to know it now, but
yeah, we'll get that for you. We had 6 held firefighter positions that had been held for several years, and we reinstated funding to 3 of those positions at the end of 2018. We reinstated funding to the final 3 in the 2019 budget, and 3 of those positions were placed in Andale at the end for the final quarter of 2018. So there was a personnel cost increase in Andale because we increased the staffing out there, and I'm sure that there will be some. Well, I don't know. The efficiency of this building is going to determine how much the electrical and that type of increase is, but we'll try to figure that out.
Okay. Is any of that? Do we do grant funding on any of these personnel?
No.
Safer grants or anything like that? We've not in the past.
Yep. This is all out of the fire district property tax fund.
Okay. The second question is just a small one. The slides aren't numbered, so I don't know which one. But you showed one picture there where you say ongoing training going up the stairs, and
yes.
So is just for my knowledge, is the training for fire personnel, does it go on at each station, or do we do it? Is this like quasi training and then you do massive training down at the fire training station?
We don't have a set fire training facility like Wichita does. So since we don't have that, we expect our officers to do in-house crew station training. This is the type of training that a captain can be doing right now today. We do get together, we bring our stations together in what we call company level drills, and what we'll do is we'll bring 3 neighboring stations together to do a drill, and we do that. We bring all those crews together, and the captain has to come up with an outline, either that or our deputy chief just pushes out a training outline that they'll teach, but we mandate all of our crews to come together into that type of a training scenario quarterly. But we do these company drills are done within the station daily.
Okay, because my recollection was that the use of the Wichita Fire Training Center was available all the time.
We can use the Wichita training facility on just a set number of days per year, and we have to give that outline prior to January 1 of the. We had to submit it last month for what days we would like to use a facility for the 2019 season.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you. What's our relationship with Colwich? They have a volunteer department there. Is there some type of an automatic aid or mutual aid agreement with them?
At this time, we just have a mutual aid agreement. We can send a tender to assist them through our aid agreement right at this time is what we have with them. And upon aid request, they can respond to assist us.
But just a side note, just to be clear, I'm supportive of doing something at this station, so I'll make sure that's very clear here. I think that you demonstrated great rationale for updating the station. I think, and I'll support that. I'm concerned about the 4 bays. I guess I'd like to see some justification for 4 bays. If there was a way to go down to 2 bays, what would that do in terms of the cost of the building? Maybe it's not worth the discussion. Maybe it doesn't save enough money. But there is a fire. Again, counting the Colwich station, that's only a few miles from this proposed site. Even to go to our own station, the one that's near Colwich, just to the east. That's by my map looks like it's about 9 miles away, and the one in Goddard's 11 miles away. So there is other coverage there in the area, plus the Colwich Volunteer Station, which is between Station 33 and 31. So there's that's also some support, although it's volunteer. I guess I would just think that maybe we ought to be talking about possibly a 2-bay option, and just find out what's the justification for 4 bays, what's the cost difference in those 2 ideas.
And right now, deep enough that we can park 2 trucks back to back, so you could put the engine and a brush truck out there at the same time. And I think you probably do want to have the doors, side by side, so you can pull through. 4 doors, but maybe not as long. So I'm just what would that look like if there's any cost savings there? Final question is, how many crew are typically assigned to this location? At this time, we have 3 daily.
And is that 24/7?
Correct.
So 3 people is our typical crew out there.
Daily, which would be 9 total personnel assigned to that station.
Correct, but they're 24-hour shifts. So there's 3 goes off, and then there's 3 more comes on the next day, and then right. So again, at shift change. And how long does shift change last? Typically, when they're all there at 6 people would be there at one time.
Generally, most of our crews get to work anywhere from 15 minutes early to 30 minutes early, and those discussions happen between that and say the same 15 minutes after.
So roughly, say an hour or so, there's
6
people there doing some
yes.
transition with you. All right, thank you very much.
Very good, thank you. And as you're looking at the design, make sure that we're building something that's going to last 40 or 50 years. So if it's better for 40 or 50 years from now to go with 4 bays, that's what we need to do. We don't want to shortchange the future.
We'll get a cost comparison on the
Very good, thank you. All right, Mr. Manager.
In the interest of time, Chairman, I think I'll just walk the halls on the agenda review. I know you've got to leave town, but I'll catch the other 4 today. Carol, if you could get me times on their calendars, and I'll see you on Thursday for agenda review.
Very good, I appreciate that. Do any commissioners have anything else that they want to bring up today? Any of the staff have anything they want to bring up today? Any of the staff back around the room? I don't see any electeds here today. Very good. Well, I appreciate breaking a little bit early because I'm supposed to be in a meeting at 1 o'clock in Topeka, so I need to hit the road. Thank you all.